Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, and happy lunch break. I hope we have a lot of people listening to us today from all over the world. It's a huge pleasure to have you today with us in the fourth session of the Urban Ocean Innovation Dialogues. And today we are going to talk about circular cities. Actually, we are moving now slightly away from plastics, which has been the topic or the main focus of Urban Ocean and the program we are implementing. So just for a quick introduction, we are going to have 4 speakers today. We will follow the presentations with a Q&A. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We are happy to take them up. Please, no insults. These ones we don't like, even if they are related to waste. And then, yeah, off we go. So a quick introduction from our network. We all know that cities are urban ecosystems in which resources are consumed and waste and emissions are produced from a myriad of activities. As urban populations are growing, cities are also growing, and they are increasingly responsible for global resource depletion and climate change. But for centuries, cities, and I think this is so obvious because that makes us people who are really who really care about cities and are excited about cities. Cities have been centers of commerce, of culture, of innovation, and the birthplace of some of the humankind's greatest ideas. And through working with our cities, we know that urbanization, if managed well, and today we have 2 cities here in the webinar, that if we manage urbanization well, we can contribute to a sustainable growth by increasing productivity and allowing innovation and new ideas to emerge. We see more and more examples from around the world how resource loops can be closed by reusing and recycling land, infrastructure, water, and materials, and by recovering energy, for example, from waste. There are so many opportunities for cities to become more resource efficient and more circular, and to avoid wasted resources, and to reduce their global, local, regional impact. The last year has shown us that we need to get better in in preparing for what the future holds for us, and we need to evolve and adapt to a new reality and context. Together with our urban ocean cities, we are working on reducing the impact cities have on the ocean, one of the, or actually the largest existing ecosystem on our planet, by focusing specifically on plastic leakage and reducing it thereof. While for all of our cities, this is an important step in their resilience journey, there's so much more we can do, and this is why we are talking today. This is one reason why I'm so excited to have 4 amazing colleagues here to join us tonight to talk about circularity and to help us to better understand what cities can do to transform into circular cities. Please join me today to welcome Daphne Achara, Soledad Montero, Hanneke van der Heijden, and Jonas Bystrom. Daphne is a senior consultant at Arab, driving the circular economy in the built environment. This evening, she will present on how circular economy approaches can build resilience in the built environment. Soledad is joining us from Montevideo. She's our Chief Resilience Officer, and she's going to show us what Montevideo has done and is planning to do to boost circular principles in the city. Hanneke works as a strategic advisor on circular economy for the city of Rotterdam, who's one of our mentor cities in the Urban Ocean program. And she will, at the height of her day, talk to us about Rotterdam's ambition for circular economy to be a common practice in the city, and by 2030, and to have their raw materials consumption reduced by 50%, if I'm not mistaken, compared to today. And finally, and last but not least, Jonas is the lead engineer at the Circular Economy Division of the European Investment Bank, and he will provide us with insights how EIB supports cities and finances circular economy projects. Daphne, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Gudrun. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. As Katrin said, my name is Devni Acharya, and I'm a senior consultant at Arup based in the Singapore office here, specializing in the adoption of circular business models, specifically in the built environment. But before we go into sharing some of our work and thinking in this space, I thought it would be nice to do a quick quiz with everyone. So if everyone could make their way to www.menti.com and put in the code 43010156, or alternatively, scan the QR code here and that will take you directly to the Menti exercise. So I already see people joining and answering the first question, a very easy question. Which city are you from? We've got people from lots of places. More people in Singapore at the moment with the bigger logo. Bangkok, Luxembourg, Amsterdam, Geneva, Philadelphia. Wow. DC. Great. Then maybe the next question. How would you describe the circular economy? So this could be a couple of sentences, it could be 2 words, 1 word. If you could maybe write your answer and share that with the team, it'll be really interesting to hear how people describe the circular economy. It could be around design, materials, business models, economics. Cradle to cradle. Systemic. Nice. Wow. Coming in thick and fast. No waste, 0 waste. Keeping resources in use, limiting waste, reusable, reducing resource consumption, resource efficiency and closed loops. New economic model to stay within the planetary boundaries. Nice. No waste because everything has a use. Reduce emissions. Then the next question. Do you believe the circular economy can help build a resilience in your city? Yes, no, or maybe. And it could be you may think something right now, and at the end of the presentation, you think something else. Yes is the clear winner here at the moment. That's great. And I hope we can solidify this yes and maybe convert that maybe into a yes by the end of the presentation. Then the 4th question. Which resilience goal can circular economy help address? And so the goals that you can see at the bottom there are the ones from the Resilient City Index. So we've got minimal human vulnerability, diverse livelihood and employment, effective safeguards to human health and life, collective identity and mutual support, comprehensive security rules of law, sustainable economy, reduced exposure and fragility, effective provision of critical services. Sustainable economy is front runner at the moment, but so is integrated development planning, effective provision of critical services, effective safeguards to human health, and diverse livelihood and employment. This is cool. I will definitely share the results of this at the end if people are interested in understanding this profile. And then the last question of the day, how can circular economy build resilience in the built environment? A nice lead-on question, hopefully, to my presentation. A bit more of a tough question, I would say, compared to the other ones. It's quite specific. It could be, again, around supply chains, materials, people, skills. promotion of reusable materials, simplifying systems, resource guarantees, recycled buildings and infrastructure. Okay, perhaps we reduce hazard from pollution. Perhaps we leave it from there because you might be stealing my presentation if I leave it for too long. So we'll keep it there. Thanks a lot for participating. Some really great ideas and definitely in line with some of the thinking that we have done at Arup. So just going into my presentation and building on that last question. So how can circular economy approaches build resilience in the built environment? So I'll just take you through a couple of challenges that the built environment is facing. Some of the circular economy approaches that can be adopted and how that can help build resilience in your city. So the first one I think it was picked up is that material prices and the price volatility of those materials is rising, and that's for a very plethora of reasons. From it could be around climate change, resource scarcity, extraction and production costs rising themselves. And so as a material component supplier, if we were able to adopt products as a service models and put in place take back schemes or even lease our materials, then as a supplier, you're reducing your exposure to shocks that might take place in the primary material supply chains. So that's the first one. The second one is around premature demolition. So in cities across the world, we see great buildings and infrastructure being demolished prematurely, even though they're good use, to make way for something new, something more lucrative that investors can get more money for. Well, there are other options for this. We can prolong the life of these buildings and infrastructure through reuse, retrofit, and refurbishment to modernize them in a way and put them back into the market to meet the needs of the society that they're built for. And this helps build resilience because you are not creating additional demand for building materials. You're reusing what you have. And in that sense, you're reducing your reliance on supply chains required to build those buildings and infrastructure in the first place. And then we have underutilized space. So we see this across cities across the globe, where some parts of buildings are being used, some aren't. People are going out for meetings, although this is less so the case now. I would say there's even more underutilized space in offices in particular. But how can we adopt circular economy approaches? Well, we should be flexible and share these spaces with multiple users to increase the utilization of them. And this has benefits in terms of bringing people together that may not necessarily have worked together, but it could also be used to solve, like, say, the housing crisis, to bring people into safe spaces and stop urban sprawl. So using the spaces that you have already rather than building new. Then we have urban flooding as a serious challenge. And of course, in Southeast Asia, where I am, it's a massive problem because of all the grey infrastructure that's being built to meet the needs of the rising population. And so there is an opportunity to really adopt green infrastructure that works with nature and enhances the existing ecosystem services rather than destroying them and working against them. And finally, this is less of a physical asset, but the built environment is super fragmented with lots of siloed thinking. So how can in terms of the circular economy, it's all about collaborating across the value chain, because you need to align incentives with different stakeholders to be able to make the business case. And this helps build resilience because you're able to pool knowledge and be more proactive and preventative in the solutions that you propose. So Arab have done a lot of work in the built environment and circular economy, and it has been a learning journey. But where we have got to at the moment is that we see circular economy as 4 distinct but related strategies. And that starts very much at the policy level because it dictates the way in which the economy works, in the way that materials exchange from one person to another. So getting that right and creating a supportive environment is extremely key. And then on a more business level, creating the right business strategy and business models that dictate the value creation of businesses and the profitability of businesses is key, and how that works with the design and material strategies is really important, because at the moment, adopting just design and material strategies without the business case doesn't support the commercial or business case of businesses that are trying to transition to circular economy. And there are different entry points that we can go about in developing circular economy strategies in not just the built environment, but in cities more broadly. We've looked at a multitude of different ways. So thinking about materials flow analysis, so looking at what are the materials going in and out of your development, and how can you either minimize the material inflows or minimize the waste coming out. You can think about lost value. So how can you identify sources of lost value and capture that to either make sure that you're creating it or not having lost value in the first place? Then there's donut economics, so thinking more of a holistic economic model of the way in which the materials and society and the environment work together. And then this is one that the city of Amsterdam have adopted. Then we have planetary boundaries as well. I think that was actually mentioned in the quiz. So using planetary boundaries and science-based targets to really dictate the way in which we decide circular economy strategies. And then finally, UX design. So thinking more on a grassroots level about people and citizens and what they need and how we can match circular economy strategies to that. So there's different ways, and maybe I can go through 3 examples very, very quickly of different entry points. So this one is the transformation of a disused rail depot in the Netherlands called Lokhel. And the entry point for this was really creating spaces that people want and need in the city. So this was used to create a library, workspaces, performance areas, and cafes as well. And what's neat about this one is that it's really been the catalyst for redevelopment across the area, which hopefully adopts circular economy principles. Then next up, we have the Old Oak and Park Royal Circular Economy Scoping Study. So the entry point for this one was resource flow analysis. So we looked at materials, energy, and water flows through this 650 hectare redevelopment area in London. And as we did that, we realized that over the 30-year development rollout, there would be a lot of construction, demolition, but also the needs of the people living and working in this area would be changing. And so one of the scenarios that we developed was around adaptable development. So how can we ensure that from day one, we're able to construct something that can change over time as the needs of the working and living population in that area changes? And then my last example is the People's Pavilion, which was a pavilion designed and built for the Dutch Design Week in 2017. And yes, it is an old case study, but I still think that it tops the charts of innovation. And the entry point for this one was really thinking, or actually making sure that there is no lost value in the building materials. So rather than buying your materials outright, screwing them together in whichever way you wanted, great, it's a nice space for a couple of weeks as the design week is happening, and in the end, what happens to it, who knows. From the outset, it was decided that all these materials would be borrowed, and that in that sense it incentivized people to maintain the quality and think of innovative ways of constructing this structure, in which case this one was using ratchet straps, which was super innovative. And then at the end of the design week, you were able to deconstruct the building and maintain the quality and therefore reusability of those materials at the end. And there's a really nice picture. I really like seeing the structure deconstructed with all the material parts in this photo here. So that's the end of my presentation. Happy to take questions after hearing the rest of the speakers speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I'm handing over to Soledad. Welcome.
I'm sorry. Hello, I'm Soledad Montero. I'm from Montevideo, the CRO from Montevideo. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I'm going to present some achievements and challenges that Montevideo faces in boosting circular economy principles in public policies. First, I want to share some information to make a context about the city. Montevideo is the capital city of Uruguay, and it has a population of 1.3 million. That is half the population of the whole country. And it bases its economy mainly in the tertiary sector, specifically in services sector and construction sector, and it's the main tourist destination in the country. And as you know, Montevideo is a city member of the Resilient Cities Network from 2017, and delivered its strategy, its resilient strategy, 3 years ago. So it is important to say that it was during the resilient strategy development process that the paradigm of circularity starts gaining relevance and was introduced as a concept for the first time in an institutional strategic document. So how did circularity become one of the main resilience topics in Montevideo? This is an important piece of information in this presentation. While Montevideo was developing the resilience strategy, the national government was developing the Uruguay 2050 development strategy. And among other topics that were discussed, one of the main debates was around the prospective planning of 6 productive complexes that were, as you can see, renewable energy, digital economy, biomaterials, food, water use, and innovation. And although it was not explicitly said at that moment, we found that these sectors were much related to circular economy. So from the resilient perspective, we thought that it was important to prepare the city to address these changes, these prospective changes that were previewed at national level. And what we did was think how Montevideo could support this transition that was proposed at national level through its own competencies. So it was a peculiar approach to the topic, but we are convinced that this approach that emerged during the resilient strategy process allow us to recognize the potential of circularity beyond the classic link to waste management in the city, and to fully incorporate it in the city resilient vision. So finally, the resilient strategy, that it is organized in 4 pillars, 4 thematic pillars, includes a specific objective in one of the pillars, that is promote a development of model that favors the circular, social, and solidarity economy. So it's not only circular, but related to social aspects and with solidarity aspects, and includes a specific initiative that is the designing of a roadmap for circular economy boosting. What was the first step? The first step we followed was to deepen the knowledge on key aspects. So we study the national laws that were available at the moment, that were recently approved at the moment, and we thought that we would support or enable the adoption of circular process at local level. Then we study the city economy to understand in which productive complex prioritized at national level Montevideo could play a key role in circular economy. And then we analyze the local government competencies to understand where to focus. And then finally, we try to identify as many as possible ongoing circular initiatives. Having this body of knowledge, then the second step was to identify opportunities to act. And Montevideo identified 2 ways and adopted both of them. First is a direct agent, that is identifying opportunities within its own competences to integrate circular transition into the model adopted by the city to plan and manage the city. For example, including circularity in mobility systems, urban water management systems, and public spaces. And the second one was as a catalyst agent, in this case by identifying opportunities to implement public policies that contribute to promote the circular transition in other business models, in other actors in the city. For example, but benefits or incentives or local laws. So our approach includes both of these ways to act. As a direct agent, we focus on buildings as circular city based on government competence. And we focus in 3 areas. The sustainable drainage systems, that was to include more green and blue drainage infrastructure, gradually into rainfall drainage systems of the city, and also including nature-based solutions. The other area was waste valorization, in this case by using recycled materials in public building, public construction, and particularly in public spaces. And the third one was building repurposing. So I'm going to go a little bit deep in building repurposing. We have developed a specific program, abandoned building program, that is run by the urban development department of the city. In Montevideo, there are more than 2,000 abandoned buildings. So the initiative goes into the process of recovering the buildings. It focuses on the legal recovery of the properties first, that is a quite difficult task, and then to convert them into public assets and restoring their social function. For example, we have developed, by recovering the building first, a set of small housing units for women with children and in a vulnerable situation because of they are victims of domestic violence, for example, and need a space to go. And there is another product of this process, that is a day center for homeless people that find a safe space to recreate and to get into social activities. And there are many others examples like that. But what I would like to highlight is this is a circular program in many ways. It encourages smart reuse of unused spaces and also contribute to reducing the expansion of the city. Second, it avoids the use of new materials for housing construction by recycling the same materials that are already available in the building. It promotes repurposing of old buildings by assigning new social functions. And it is an equitable redistribution of urban assets. It avoids gentrification and promotes an equitable redistribution of urban activities among more needed people. From the second point of view, as a catalyzing agent, we focus on 3 economic sectors: the gastronomy and food sector, the construction sector, and repair and reuse sector. I'm going to go deep about on repair and reuse sector. In this case, the initiative is based on an existing tradition of small repair businesses in the city. So we are not promoting new public centers for reuse or remanufacturing objects, but we focus in empowering the small businesses that already exists in the city. So what we first did was to develop a diagnosis of the business sector, to identify how many were they located, and what were the barriers to scale up the business. And we found that there were two clear defined sectors. On the top of these pictures, we find the repair sector business that in general is run by elderly people with artisan skills and old trades in the process of disappearing, this knowledge of artisan skills, but who are far from the digital economy and new forms of marketing. And the reuse sector is generally run by young people who are looking for new forms of consumption, looking for unique products, and are more close to digital economy. So we decided a route to support the creation of networks for these small businesses to share experience and to share the knowledge between these two generations, so that the repair sector could gain information on digital economy and digital marketing, and reuse sector could gain experience on new artisan skills and new trades. So in a circular problem, it is a circular program in many ways. First, it seeks to maintain products and extend the life of objects, but repairing. It seeks to share and reuse the objects. There is a revalorization of traditional crafts that it could disappear if we don't follow a specific policy on that. And there is a share of knowledge between generations that we found it also a circular way of approaching the problem. So as a conclusion, I have to share a personal reflection. At the beginning of this process in Montevideo, we thought that the best practice to follow was to develop a comprehensive circular economy policy for Montevideo as a unique compilation of strategic lines and actions. But then after these years, we found that not trying to force the adoption of a unique circular economy policy, it could be a good way, a good path for a city like Montevideo, where there are still the social inequality is still a main issue. So we think having a good roadmap that defines in which few areas you can introduce the circular principles and contribute with that specific policies that are already running in the city, it could be a better option for us, for a city like us. Thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Soledad. I'm super excited to hear that, because actually I think you presented very, very well one addition to Devni's entry points. So resilience can be the entry point to start thinking about a circular economy. And I think this is why we are here and why we as resilient cities are talking about circular economy. Hanneke, please. Let us hear about Rotterdam.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Let me see if I can share the screen. Yeah. So, say a little bit about myself. My name is Hanneke van der Heijden. I'm the strategic advisor for the program Rotterdam Circular. It's a program within our local government to really make the transition to a circular economy here within the city and the harbor of Rotterdam, which is, of course, a big goal. So there's a lot of work and a lot of nice things that we do here every day. Let me see if that works. Is it connecting the presentation?
We can see the slides, but they haven't moved yet.
Oh, yeah, now it's moving, I think.
Yep.
So the path of transition management is a little bit similar to my presentation today, in the sense that there's a lot of steps that you can take. So it's not within a day that you reach the peak of the mountain. And a program like ours, we started a few years ago with the start basically of the program in a way of an inspiration network, in a way that we knew kind of what the problem was, of course, around resources and why to build a circular economy, but not really know how to reach that peak yet. So we started with a lot of different kind of projects in a lot of different areas to kind of just get ahead and learn while doing. And we are right now at the stage that we're like halfway through. So we reached base camp, basically. So we learned a lot from all the different routes that we took, and we kind of combining them now for a new strategy. And that's the reason why I am not going to present our strategy today, because the strategy that we have right now as really our strategy is a little bit the first phase strategy. And have been working so much on our second stage of the strategy that I'm fully into that. And I'm super excited to be sharing more about that. But that's a little bit too early. So what I've done is a little bit of a different route. I'm going to share some tips of the routes that we take. And that kind of course, explains a little bit about the strategy that we have done. So I hope you bear with me and you'll be fine with this kind of presentation. So this is actually also the way it goes with transition, right? We think this is how it goes, but in the end, this is how it really goes. It's messy and it goes always, but yeah, that's how it goes, because a transition is not really as easy, explanatory, and clear as most of the more linear stages of how we think that we can change an organization, or we do a project from A to B. It's just a little bit more messy. So there we go. Number one, keep aiming for the goal. This is something that I see happening a lot within the circular economy, is that we kind of disconnect with the goal, and the instrument of the circular economy becomes a goal in itself. Well, actually, a circular economy is just a tool, it's a method, it's a way of working towards kind of reducing the negative impact that we have producing, consuming the way that we are now in a linear economy, and the enormous impact that has on our environment. And the other impact is really about resource scarcity. And that's always been something that sounds kind of hypothetical, but I don't know if that's the same in your cities as well. But something that I've really seen happening last year, especially as well, around scarcity, is not that it's only about physical scarcity, but the really stopping flows of some kind of resources internationally. So COVID has really shown this again, that in some areas there's really difficulty with getting the resources into town, which has of course a big effect on the planning, but also on costs. So that's the actual goal. So this is in Dutch, sorry for it, but this is one of the things that I try to keep doing in our program and in our organization, to really be really sharp on what's the actual goal, what are we working on. So we talk a lot about repair, reusing, and all that as well is just a method. It's a method of doing something else, so we can kind of decrease the negative impact that we have on the environmental, and to screw up kind of to level up the security on the deliverance of resources worldwide. I have some examples with that, a little bit maybe far out there, but why is it important to have the goal clear? I'm an anthropologist, by the way, from study direction, so this is why I always like to use this kind of types of photos. This is a project in Tanzania where on the lowlands they had a lot of difficulty of growing on the agricultural land really good crops because of climate change. I don't have to tell you that that's one of the, of course, resilience topics. And they really saw how big the impact was, of course, of the snow that was on the Kilimanjaro. So the ecosystem working of snow, rain, and hydration of the earth. And the combination as well of the agricultural sector and the touristic sector, because snow on the mountains means that tourists are, it's a happy image for tourists that want to climb the Kilimanjaro. So these people all kind of had in a little bigger ecosystem, all kind of the same problem, but we're working on different kind of solutions. And they brought it together within one project. And the frame of the project, there was just one line, and the project was called Project White Mountain. And everyone understood, even if you work in agriculture or in tourism or wherever, they all understood what was the purpose, the real goal of why they were doing what they were doing. So the why was really clear, and that's why they could work on the same thing. And that's the same of building. It's a building in Venlo. And here was the clear goal. We want to build a new construction site, but one thing has to be really out there, and that's health, because the employees there, they had a lot of issues with people falling sick for a very long time. This is also really near big streets, so the air pollution was really big. So they had just one goal in mind: we're going to build here a building that is as healthy as can be. And that was just the main ambition and the main goal. That's what was their why. And that's how come they made all these choices in the construction of the building that were completely in the direction of building a healthy building. So again, the purpose of this project was super, super clear. And I already laughed during the first presentation because we chose the same one. Also, this one, just the People's Pavilion, we've already seen it before, so I won't go into that in depth. But again, here you see the purpose really, really clearly, because this building was built only temporarily. So why is it then super important to build something that you can reuse as highly as you can? So what is then the one thing that you do, for example, when you ask your neighbors for something, their car maybe, because your car broke down and you want to borrow their car just for the day so you can visit your parents or whatever, then you be really careful with it, right? Because it's from someone else. So this is what their ambition was. It's 100% borrowed, because when you borrow it from your neighbor, you'll just treat it nicely so you can bring it back next day. So again, this purpose, having it really, really clear, made it easy to make the choices within the project. Yeah, we've seen already some really nice images to really build it like you can unbuild it. And it was like exactly the same or returned as it was delivered. It's amazing. So the second one, don't be afraid to make choices. That's one of the things that we sometimes do, especially if you have people around you. Maybe you recognize it in yourself, maybe within your team, maybe you see it in me, like we're all passionate about changing something for the good of the world. But sometimes we stack our ambitions a little bit too high. And too high ambitions for everything and everyone and every project you're doing is also sometimes an overkill. So sometimes it's just, like I said, with the mountain as well, you can't reach that mountain in day one, and you can't reach a marathon without training, right? You have to start somewhere. So don't be afraid to make choices. We started making choices, for example, focus on impact on the different sectors that we're working on. So for us, as a big city with a big harbor, it was the construction sector, the consumer goods, the green streams, so everything green, so the biosphere within the city, and healthcare was one of the four topics that were really on our minds. And we kind of connected the dots. What are the instruments that we have as a local government to kind of push on all these kind of different fields? Another way to really make a choice is not every project needs to be 100%. So all the framing on, we have 100% circular project. I mean, it's probably really nice for your communication strategy, but it can also really kill the step up and to motivate people within your organization or outside to start and go ahead with it. And it doesn't need to be perfect, and it doesn't need to be 100%. We still can do some things. So that's why I use this model a lot. So you have iconic projects on the one hand, kind of the projects that I named in the beginning, where you really go to multiple innovation strategy. You integrate the complexity of different kind of sustainable ambitions. The impact here lies within that project, that you go really beyond borders, and that's really good for communication. And usually people in the chair of the board of directors really love this kind of things, but it's also a little bit project level. We can do this on a project base and not yet on an organizational level. What you need as well is what I call scalable projects, projects that are maybe a little bit easier, more single focus on an innovation strategy that really fits the thing that you're doing there. So for a new construction building, I said like the biggest environmental impact in this is the construction itself. We use a lot of concrete for that. There's of course 1,000 other circular opportunities within this building, but we're just going to focus on that. So we just learn how it is to use a completely new material. And we know we're going to do more of these kind of projects. So we learn it in this project, and then we realize we can do it, and we can do it maybe even cost efficiently. We found new partners in the market where we can work with, and then we can do it again for a new project and a new project. So this is how you kind of go to process change, to impact. The impact is there on the implementation of organizational changes that are brought within policies and contracts. And that's and how we reach all those high ambitions that we can sometimes easily state in our policies, 230, 250, we're going to be that, we're going to be that. But sometimes you just need to start and be not in 100%. And so combine the inspiration. I've got some images of here in the city of Rotterdam. We've been doing a lot of nice things out there for people that live here in the city. Are able to see. So we have really like this golden campaign. Everything that we do in the city is gold. From the idea, it's in Dutch is called van zooi naar mooi, so from trash to something beautiful. Also from the last one is a little bit, it's not the best picture in here, but the one on the right hand is from the Song Festival. I don't know if any one of you have watched it, but we used, of course, to be proud of our town. A lot of what they call, I didn't know this was a name, but they call city dressing. So a lot of banners and stuff within the city. But it was already planned beforehand that all those materials that were used to dress the city were afterwards used to make new products. So for example, things that you can, like a cloth you can lie in the park in the summer, and so and nice bags. So they're building new or they're making new products of these things that were just used temporarily for the Song Festival. But it's of course very inspirational. Combine it with impact. So really know what you're doing and why you're doing it. And this is something that is one of my missions, and because all the carbon reduction targets that we have is really connected to energy. So the Paris Agreement, and translated for Brussels, for The Hague, for us nationally, for us locally, everything has to do with the impact of the what they call scope 1 and scope 2, mostly scope 1, sometimes scope 2 emissions, but never ever on scope 3 emissions. And that's really, I find that kind of weird, because you're really focusing on targets on one part of the whole scheme, while you're kind of ignoring and maybe making it worse on another part of the whole story. So I usually use this, oh, it's skipping, I don't know why, yeah. To show a little bit what the impact of materials is. And this frame is really helping me to not just do the inspirational projects, but also sign in the direction of impact. Where lies the impact of materials? That if you look at carbon emissions from the building environment, this is for a new building and in a residential area, that the carbon impact of energy is the gray area. So this is everything that we're trying to cover with the energy transition and everything that is covered within all the Paris agreements. While the orange part is for new building, and the yellow for during maintenance phase of the materials is the carbon impact of materials. So if we keep ignoring the emissions, and so carbon emissions, but actually also other emissions from the material side, then we're trying to optimize only 1/3 of the whole problem. So yeah, I found this super interesting and really helping me to not just focus on inspirational projects, but also really sometimes point your finger at where's the problem, and let's deal with that as well. I think almost the last one, don't focus on technique only. So I hope I'm okay in time, just to cut me off if I'm taking too long. Because this is one of the things that sometimes goes wrong. When we think of innovation, we think of technique, and we love technique. And I know it because you know, we make lovely products, and this is where our eyes go, wow, cool. But the thing is, when we focus only on technique, so this chair, for example, is completely made to how do you say it? Designed for disassembly, of course. But if there are no agreements, zero, on who is going to take it back after I've used it, then it can still be trash in the end. And it's a very interesting concept or project. It's almost painful to show it to you here. This is a project. I saw that someone was from Amsterdam in the group as well. So sorry, Amsterdam. This is something as a school that was been built in Amsterdam, and they knew already that it was going to be a temporary high school, because the area needed a bigger development. But right there, they needed the school, and it was completely modularly built. But they didn't make any agreements on the process and on the finances to really demolish or to really take it slowly from piece by piece. So because there was no agreement on it, it was demolished anyway. So we really have to be clear about, it's not about only the content on the technical parts. We also have to really be careful that the circular economy is really something that we have to do together. So also, and it's an economic system. So the financial agreements on it, it's super, super important. And last but not least, a little bit wink, of course, to the current situation, super spread your success. So connect the small wins to the bigger changes. And that really asks for a bottom-up and a top-down approach. So the bottom-up is all the initiatives and is all the nice projects, but you also need a top-down approach to really land it within your organizational structure and to really have agreements with different kind of departments, what you're really going to do in a long haul. This helps you as well to not stay too long in the pilot project phase, to really be able to scale it up and connect it to the core business of your organization. This was my story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Hanneke. And Jonas, would you like to share your presentation?
I will do that. And first, I need to say that I've not had technology with me today. I've had to leave and reconnect a couple of times. If I'm not heard or you cannot follow me, maybe if some videos could be turned off, it could be a way to ensure that I'm heard. But hopefully this will work. I will try. Can you see my screen?
Yep,
Yes.
looks great.
Very good. I will go along and else someone shout if it starts to be connection problems. So I'm representing the European Investment Bank, which is the EU bank, the long-term lending arm of the Commission, European Commission or the EU. And we are actually the largest multilateral lender borrower in the world. And we have around 450 projects per year, 3,500 people working in Luxembourg, and around 50 offices around the world. And last year, we lent around 66 billion euro, of which the main part was in EU, 90%, but also in other parts of the world. And we focus on environmental projects, infrastructure, innovation, and quite a lot to support small and medium enterprises. And in 2020, last year, we launched the Climate Bank Roadmap, which means, or where we committed that all projects should be Paris aligned from January this year. And we also committed to that half of our lending should have relevance and contribution to climate action and to environmental sustainability by 2025. And it would then support up to 1 trillion of projects in total on these objectives. We have a lot of focus on the circular economy and on circular cities. We are an EU policy-driven bank, and you have probably seen and known that the EU Commission has focused on this topic for many years now, and it's high on their agenda. And in the circular economy, we are, of course, as a bank providing lending also to the smaller and the more risky projects with different kind of instruments. We offer blending, trying to combine loans with grants. We have various kind of advisory initiatives that can support promoters in preparing, improving bankability of projects. And we are quite active in various networks on circular economy and circular cities. We have also provided knowledge material of different kinds, and I'll come back to that a bit later. With regard to financing circular economy, which was the topic I should focus on, we have seen that the circular economy promoters and the projects vary quite a lot. There are many different kinds of business models, from the traditional closing the loop models focusing on recycling, maybe recovery, to the more innovative and newer leasing, sharing business models, for example. There's also, of course, a large variation with regard to the company size, maturity, history, from the very young startups with maybe innovative technologies, business models, to the large corporates that can borrow on their balance sheet and really have no problem in raising the funding. And then with regard to the risk profile, some projects feature new technologies, maybe not fully proven. There could be market value chain risks on the feedstock offtake side, legal risk, client risks, etc. And this together means that we as a bank and others really need to try to offer different kinds of financing. And what we have in our toolbox is, for the larger projects, what we call investment loans. It's one loan, one contract with one promoter, usually to build one facility or infrastructure. We can also, for multi-component type of operations, use what we call framework loans, which is a loan to often a multi-component investment program, for example, for cities. It can be smaller components down to a couple of millions that meets the criteria that we have agreed on with the promoter at the time of signing. And then we look at these components as the kind of operation progresses. We are not appraising them upfront. And usually we should have them 50 million of project cost, and this could go via an intermediary bank and not just directed to a promoter or a city, for example. We often also lend via other banks, intermediated lending, for example, supporting SMEs and medium-sized companies. And then we monitor how these banks on-lend the funds we provided. We also have thematic impact financing when there are a need to take risk, support commercialization of innovative technologies, business models, benefits from guarantees from the European Commission, for example. And we can invest in equity funds. Looking at the lending the last 5 years, we have done around 2.7 billion in 7 different sectors. And you see that there's quite a wide range, from industry services, agricultural, wastewater management, to a bit of lending also in mobility, urban development, and energy. When it comes to the guidance and knowledge sharing, we have seen in the bank a need to kind of create a harmonized view on what the circular economy is and how to define circular economy. And therefore we have prepared a guide that we have also published an external version of, and I will show you later the URL where you can find it. And one thing is, as I said, the definition of the circular economy, which is a bit in flux because we have in the EU the sustainable finance taxonomy framework and then work going on, and that will be further refined. We have also seen a need to with regard to cities, try to provide our thoughts and views on how a city that maybe is linear today could go about mapping out the journey towards a kind of higher state of circularity. And that we do in this guide, the 15 circular steps for cities, with, as the title indicates, 15 different concrete steps a city can take on the planning side, on the action side, but also on mobilizing stakeholders and monitoring. And this is also available on our website. And I think it points at the need to start to map out the progress from the linear, congested, polluting, poorly resource consuming state to the more circular state in a systematic manner, looking first at the local context, resource flows, like I've been said before, looking at the option, prioritize the sector, and then craft the vision, the strategy, ideally with as many relevant stakeholders involved as possible. And then looking at ways of addressing the circular opportunities, both from the city as an action partner or as a kind of facilitator, catalyst of actions that other stakeholders, promoters can take. And then to ensure that there is awareness built, citizens are up to speed on what can be done, why it should be done. Efforts are made to confront linear inertia. There is an effort made to connect, facilitate cooperation, etc., etc. And then to ensure that this is monitored and communicated on to follow and monitor the progress. We've also, together with the advisory hub, prepared a circular city funding guide that has 3 sections. One is for circular fund seekers, one is for circular fund providers, and then there is a section with more general information on circular city context with case studies, with also quite a lot of resources in a special section. And this can be reached through the URL indicated here, but there is also a LinkedIn group that is, discussing on this topic. I understood that the plastic aspect, the urban plastic aspect in the resilient network has been already discussed in a couple of meetings, but just to tell a bit of what the EIB is doing, we have, together with 5 other European institutions, created the Clean Oceans Initiative in 2018. And this is aiming at supporting projects that tackle the plastic pollution, the discharge, poor collection, management of waste, discharge of microplastics in wastewater, stormwater systems that are not really functional, filled up with waste because of non-collection, and maybe just acting as linear landfills and bringing the waste out to the sea. And by supporting such projects, we are not setting out to solve the problem of all the plastics discharged to and accumulating the oceans, but hopefully to demonstrate some approaches of how this can be done through projects. And from EIB side, we have a technical assistance facility in Sub-Saharan Africa that is trying to identify and prepare projects that is contributing to these objectives. And we have a joint 2 billion target, and it is up to date around 28 projects financed and around 1.5 billion towards the goals. We are doing quite good progress in approaching that goal. To contribute to increase the awareness, both regarding the importance of oceans to us all and to the planet, but also to highlight a bit more than we are other ways doing the threats posed by the plastics in the ocean, and to look at some challenges in addressing this plastic pollution problem with regard to the regulatory governance issues, with regard to institutional financing issues, but also the technical issues, and then to highlight how can these challenges be overcome and how can actual impact be achieved on the ground, and to look at the financing aspects of this. We have prepared this guide, the Ocean Plastics Reduction Guide, which was actually launched yesterday. There was an EU Green Week session on ocean pollutions where we presented this for the first time. And in addition to these aspects of the ocean value, the problem and the solution, the guide is including quite a lot of information about the regulatory framework, but also in particular the other clean ocean initiatives apart from the initiative we are involved with for other banks. And it is hoped and maybe intended also that the guide would somehow raise awareness, but also inspire action and change among relevant stakeholders, planners, promoters, and other stakeholders. So with that, I will say thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Catherine and company, this was very nice opportunity, and also good to learn a bit more of what the network is doing. More information about what we are doing in the circular economy and in regard to preserving the oceans can be found on these two sites. And we also have a circular economy address that can be a way to get in contact with me and others in the circular team. So with this, I will stop sharing, and I hope that you have been able to follow this and that my connection has...
Everything was clear in Singapore, and Daphne is smiling. So I think on her side in Singapore as well as in Rotterdam and in Montevideo, and I hope in all the other cities who are participating as well. Thank you so much for all these great presentations. Thank you so much also for already addressing the questions in the chat. So which puts me in the position that I am actually able to choose the topics we are going to talk about, or the questions you may have to answer now. We have about 9 more minutes to go. So I'm taking the opportunity to actually address all of you at once. So you are all experts in different fields. You all have done stuff in cities. We are just starting. And a lot of cities are starting. So if you look at all the experience, and I think each of you talked about what could be an option to do, but if you would have a chance to start your circular economy journey in your city, what would you recommend? What would be the first thing you potentially would look at? And I would appreciate if you would share that with us. Daphne, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think this is less of what I would look at and the way that I would think. And so it would be just like think in sources of lost value and flows, not sectors. Because I think sometimes government departments, because they are structured in a very sectoral way. So very thinking about energy or construction or water, forget that. Think about the movement of materials through the economy and use that as the source of inspiration.
Thank you so much. Soledad, do you have a recommendation for us?
Yes, I think I mentioned before during my presentation also. I think for us it was important to identify where it was possible to introduce these principles of circularity in the city. So it is important to build the knowledge about this circular process and see which laws are available to enable the process and which are the competencies of the city where we can work on that. So I agree with Daphne that it is important not to focus on sectoral areas, but try to find a way to link many policies in different sectors that could work together in a circular way.
Thank you. Hanneke, how do you reach your Mount Kilimanjaro top?
I would like to, it's kind of an add up to Daphne, because we had that kind of strategy, as in we had a research done in the base of the foundation of our program that was resource based. So where are the material flows throughout the city? And yes, it was helpful, but I also missed something in that analysis that I would love to give you as a tip, because the material flows are not anonymous. The material flows are connected to people, companies, organizations. So you really have to do kind of a actor analysis. So who is owning right now these kind of materials, or who is responsible for that part of the material, and not just that's something that I see a lot of cities doing, but because one of the goals of or one of the main things that a city already does is the waste stream, of course. But that's just what I always call the backside of the circular economy. So really keep an eye on the front side of the economy as well. So everything that comes in and everything that we buy and build newly, and not just on the material flow, but also really the design questions within that. But combine it with the actor analysis. So who is right now the owner? Because there is your the knoppen, I would say in Dutch, the shift that you can make, what you can actually do to change something. Because if it's anonymous, we don't know who is the actor who is going to make a decision to keep doing what they're doing or to do something new. So you need that aspect as well, and to kind of make the strategy on what is the circle of influence of me as a local government, and where do I need other parties, what is their influence. So yeah, I would combine the definitely a point of the resource and material analysis with an actor analysis.
Thank you so much. So Jonas, you are sitting on a big box of money. So how does the perfect circular economy project for you look like? So what do our cities need to do to submit something that's super exciting for you?
Well, I mean, for us, anything that would be kind of deemed by us as circular would be good. It would contribute to our 50% target I mentioned before. And when it comes to what we're looking at, as I indicated, the project need to, in a way, convince us with regard to factors. The promoter need to convince us with regard to their knowledge, understanding, commitment, and the way that they have taken maybe a good idea to something that approach commercialization. But like I said, many of the projects that are presented to us involve some kind of valorization. And it may be a new technology that needs to be convincing. There is often an issue or a question with how about the feedstock? Is there certainty on that this new waste stream or material stream will be available for, if not the life of the project, at least enough to kind of, make the business case viable, but also that whatever they produce is possible to sell. There is a market, there is a demand, etc. So those are things we look at. For cities, I mean, what we're trying to do, like I said, is to talk to cities who often have investment programs with many, many different sectors, ranging from schools to roads to water to waste, etc., and try to convince them that it may be for a bank like us and maybe other banks as well, an interest in, rather than providing this framework loan I mentioned that could be used and are to a large extent used for many different sectors, many different components, trying to identify the sectors, the project types that really have a circular relevance. And that would enable us then together to create what we call thematic operations that really has a focus on circular economy, maybe circular economy and climate action adaptation. And that's the kind of thing that makes us really happy. When we are able with an interested city to work with them, we have our advisory opportunities and can then look at in the investment program what is circular, but maybe also together what is it that is linear that could be turned a bit more circular, and what are the kind of circular activities that the city themselves, the utilities can do, or that the city could encourage and support SMEs to do that could be added. And that's, as I said, then we are in a really happy mood.
Thank you so much. So we have 1 minute left, and I would like to give the word back to Soledad, because Soledad is actually our Chief Resilience Officer. She's a person who has resilience deep at her heart. This is what we are. We are resilience practitioners, and we are talking about the circular economy. Soledad, you build the circular economy into your resilience strategy, and I would like to hear, why do you think circular economy is good for building resilience in cities?
Yes. Well, I have to say when I start the process of building the resilience strategy, we didn't know very much about circular economy. And personally, I didn't know very much about that, and nor the rest of my team. So at the beginning, we didn't see how a circular economy could be introduced into the resilience strategy. And when we did the diagnosis for the resilience situation in the city, a circular economy, it didn't came as a particular theme to be introduced. But then we found that, in fact, if we don't think about circular economy like from an economic point of view, but for the point of, there are many principles inside that concept of circular economy that you could translate or put in the normal activities of the city. We discovered that during the process. So now we think that in a city to be circular, there are many activities that you can consider. For example, the drainage system, including new ways of rainfall drainage. It is a main activity for circular economy policy, but it's not clear when you start thinking on circular economy that this is part of the circular economy process. So from the resilient experience, what we had to share is that resilience is about addressing changes and take it the best advantage of that changes that are going to occur or that they are occurring. So the fact that circular economy it's in the center of the discussion, it is an opportunity, and it is open doors for addressing changes in a different way. So for us, it became a center point of the strategy, because later on we discover how circular economy could be embedded in all city functions. But that is a result of a knowledge process construction for the city.
Thank you so much. 2 minutes over. Thank you, all of you, for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for giving us a lot to think about, to providing us with inspiration. And I really hope that you will be part of, or continue to be part of our resilience journey with the Urban Ocean program. And I wish you a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and a wonderful afternoon. And talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Thank you.